Here's the recording in here. There's the encoder, and you are good to go.
Okay. Where the hell are we? Oh, I lost us. There we are. All right. Bear with us for a second. This is Human Condition. I'm Sean.
I thought you were Vince.
Yeah, we're going straight technical default. We're gonna get this shared live for you in a minute. I'm Vince Orlando.
I'm Sean Davis.
And we're waiting on our guest, Derek Denham. If you've read his bio, he's actor, writer, producer. He's doing a documentary series right now on police brutality. We've had some good conversations on Facebook. I know Derek from, well, I'll wait for him to get on. I'm going to share this with everybody right now, so that's taken care of. Hey, Dave, is this up on our page?
It's on the Podcast Detroit page.
Podcast Detroit, okay. All right, there we are. Look at that. It's us. It's amazing technology. Woo-hoo. Let's do a watch party. There we are. Look at that. It's us. Ha! Turn that down real quick. Maybe I'm still tripped out by it. Let's see, watch party. Sorry, people. I guess I'm stuck in here right now. Do you have yours? Can you share it to our? We'll be with you in a second. I don't know, anyone who's chimed in, you probably can't see us right now anyway, so I'm talking to no one. But we got the watch party up on our. If you go to Podcast Detroit.
Okay.
Next week next episode, we should be back in the studio and back to whatever normal is in this environment. Go to Podcast Detroit, and you'll see the live, and then share it to the Human Condition.
Where's the live?
Huh. Somewhere on there.
It should be
Oh,
right
I
at the
got
top.
it. I got
Oh,
it.
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, and now we're just how do I share it? Got it.
You got it? Yeah. Now we're just copy the link. Get out of here. Go to the Human Condition. And we're good to go. Hey, there he is.
What's up? What's up?
You can hear us? We can hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I apologize. I was using my Mac, but it's saying that I need to update, and when I try to update, I don't know what's going on. So
we're sitting here trying to figure, because we're still in trying to figure out the tech. We were back in the studio next week, but we don't know how to share this thing because we can't get it to our Facebook Live. So you got the watch party though, right? To share.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, and you can share it with whoever you want. But then all of this is permanent. It'll be on iTunes and SoundCloud, so you can share the audio, and we'll be able to share the link from our page. But anyway, we introduced ourselves. This is Derek Denham, actor, writer, producer. I know Derek from actually when I first moved back from LA. This is dating myself now, but it was 2000. It was 2000 when I came back, and me and my girlfriend had broke up. And I said, you know what, I'm going to move back to Michigan, get in an acting class, find somebody serious who wants to be a roommate, and move back to LA. I got in this group called the Actors Workshop. Derek was a part of it. And at the end of the term, I wound up doing a play. And these guys were doing a movie called Detroit, then Panic in Detroit. And then it got released as Corrupted Minds. And that's how I know Derek. So we go way back in the
back in the day.
Yeah. So the reason we're having, there's so many reasons why we're talking right now, you know, and it's good to have you engaging on the page. It's good to hear your voice. It's good to hear everybody's voice. Like I'm at a place now consciously where I can listen to the opinions that I'm disgusted with, right? Like there's some things that I just can't believe, even people I love, like family or like family, that they're saying that they believe, but at the same time, I always have to dial it back, and I have to look at myself 5 years ago, and then even 10 years ago, and even beyond that, and say, I was clueless. I was clueless, and it wasn't because I was a malicious person. A lot of the actions or beliefs that I had were ingrained in me, and it took a lot of trauma to jostle me into a position to where I had to evaluate myself and say, look,
Right.
maybe what I'm doing in life is wrong. Like I seem to be the common denominator here, and through that, I started this path. And my son being born was a huge part of it. But through all of that, I got on this path of self-discovery, and it almost killed me on multiple occasions. Literally, I almost died. I don't even know how many times. I can 5 off the top of my head, 6. And if I thought more, I'd probably think of more. But it was that extreme, right? And I was such an egotistical, controlling person, not because I was an asshole, even though I thought I was cool and I thought I was whatever. I wasn't. I was very insecure and very protective because of what happened to me as a child. I lived in a state of fight or flight. So it was interesting when we got into the conversation about fear, and then you started spelling out what your definition of fear was, and I'm like, well, that's a fresh perspective from somebody who's experienced what it is we're talking about, because me and Sean, we're both white, right? It's not going to change. It is what it is. And all we can do is try to empathize as best we can, because I can relate to, because I was poor, right? I was very poor, but that's not all black people. You know what I mean? And I didn't really realize that until I got on the board at my church and I started hearing professional black men talk about their experience and why they're afraid of being pulled over, and how nerve-wracking it is to, when I started hearing that, I'm like, because all my black friends were criminals and all my white friends were criminals. You know what I mean? Like that was my reference point, was about criminals. I didn't have anything beyond that. So when we were saying, oh, fuck the police, it was a different kind of, like we were saying it because we didn't want to be bothered because we were committing crimes. So it was different, you know. Right. But you know, you come from you went to Birmingham, Groves, right?
No, my daughter attends Groves.
Oh, okay.
I'm from downriver Detroit originally, and moved to Pontiac when I was 6, and I went to Pontiac Central, very diverse high school. So got a chance to meet a lot of different people, which I think prepared me as a black man to be able to deal with anyone. So, you appreciate things as you get older, Vince.
Yeah. No, there's definitely. Well, I mean, it depends on how you're growing, right?
Exactly.
I know some people that are miserable. They're stuck, and
oh yeah,
we can't unstick them. You know what I mean? Like we just
no, you can't really, like, diversity, can happen to you where your life just is, you get to experience more than others. Some people just stay put in the same neighborhood they've always known. They don't venture out. They don't know anything but that bubble that they live in. Whereas other people who, have had more experiences with different cultures and different races and, growing up in different areas, it really promotes, a lot of learning lessons.
We're shaped, as we all know, from things, the way we were brought up. I don't think racism is something, well, I won't say that, you can get it any other way besides being a learned particular piece, but I believe that's where it starts, at home, in my personal opinion. I think it starts maybe, like you said, Vince, if you went to a school that was all white, or, a situation like that where you haven't been, privy to being around black guys or black girls for that matter. Seeing one of my stats on your post, I was talking about my daughter that attends Birmingham Groves.
Yeah.
And my daughter is
Can you share that?
Yeah. My daughter attends Groves, and she's dark skin complexion. I'm considered light skin, for a black person. And it's so ironic. She had went to D.C. for the 8th grade trip, and guess who was getting inaugurated at that time?
Oh, okay.
Donald Trump.
Okay.
So a lot of little white kids, because she's in the 1% of the school, and a lot of the white kids, very astute individuals. A lot of them are pro-Trump at her age, and I'm talking about 8th grade middle school now. So let me correct that. So when she went to the trip, a lot of them had on Magna hats and things like that. And as a young black girl, let alone a black boy, that could be very intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty with my child, she's been taught to be very respectful, very open to, different ideals, different mindsets. But she was naive. My daughter is very naive to things going around, So when we see in the black community, we have this thing called the talk.
Yeah. All right.
The talk. So when you tell someone that's not black, they may think it's something to do with, the birds and the bees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in the black community, it's a talk. Well, you know what? When you're out and about, you've got to act a certain way. If you're in a car as a black girl or a black boy, you get pulled over, these are the things that you have to do. And to say that to a person in the 8th grade,
That's
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So so when I talk to my white friends, and for those that they may not know, which I'll be honest with you, Vince, I find that to be kind of incredible not to know. At this point in our lives, I could see. I'm 52 years old, and there's so many things that's happened since when I was a child. Too many to name. We can go back to Malice Green. We can go back to Rodney King. We can go back to so many different instances of racial injustice. Racial injustice, and not just from police officers. So again, to have that talk to an 8th grader and say, "Hey, this is how it is, Jordan." Her name is Jordan. This is how it is. Love it, like it, hate it, whatever. But this is our reality. And when you try to tell a kid, then they're like, "No, Dad, no, it's not like that." No, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And that's a sad reality. And there's a term called driving while black. And I say this all the time. That's a fact.
Yeah, no.
And when I have these racial debates, I say there's no such thing as DWW, driving while white. It's driving while black. And why is that? Now, let me just share this with you guys. It's not just about, I know we mentioned on your page, people talking about police brutality and, things of that nature. But guess what? That includes black folks. That's black cops.
Yeah.
That's being 100 with you.
It's a system.
It's a system. I got into a debate the other day with a person I consider to be a friend of mine, law enforcement. And he feels that people are just, with social media, they're just coming at police hard. Hey man, I wake up and I have this, I'm just tired of people attacking the police. And, and then when you respond, it's like you have to have, you're walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, hey man, I love you, man. I love the job you're doing. This is not about you though. Yeah. This is about those bad apples.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that, and I notice it with people, because some of the people that are on my page, like there's not many that, okay, so if you're a good friend of mine from back in the day,
sure,
you might not have challenged me in a public forum 5 years ago, because I was real, as soon as I would get defensive. I would feel like because I'm being challenged, it makes me less than. This is all subconscious, right?
I got you.
I lash out on the first set of words that opposes my opinion, because it wasn't really about the opinion that I had. It becomes about me having to win. It's an insecurity thing. It's fear driven. I'm being attacked. I'm being alienated. I'm being rejected. Like all the, and I took years of PTSD therapy to get through I lived in a state of constant fight or flight, right? So I was
Okay.
going to lash out on you quick because I couldn't let you make me look stupid. That really
Understood.
wasn't what was going on. And you went to Pontiac Central, so I mean, I remember, the fuck are you looking at? I wasn't looking at anything. 90% of the time, nobody was looking at shit and didn't know I existed. But I had this chip on my shoulder. Somebody would ask me something, and I would say, "Do you think I'm stupid?" They didn't say that. Nobody said I was fucking stupid.
Right.
Does that happen sometimes? Yes.
Definitely.
But that was what I lived with, and that's what we're dealing with now. Is people aren't listening, and you can see it in my posts too. I'll write books of posts. Like, they're long and they're detailed because I'm like, well, nobody's going to say I don't provide context, right? I'm not putting sound bites out there.
Exactly.
There's context. So if you really want to know what I'm talking about on every side of the fence, you got to actually read it. And I can tell where a person gets off. Like, I can tell where they've heard exactly what they want to hear to support whatever belief system they feel is being challenged.
Definitely.
The only thing I personally want to do is challenge people. That's what this show is about. Challenge people to think. No agenda here. You know what I mean? Like, we don't.
Open-mindedness.
And that's why we're talking.
Open-mindedness is what we're trying to achieve.
Well, let me just say this, and Vince, you know I appreciate you. Like I said, we haven't talked a lot over the years, but through Facebook, or I send you something, or I'll see a project you're working on. But one thing I do know, we had a great rapport even when we were working on the movie project. Yeah. And you had a little flavor to you. You got a little soul to you. You know what I mean? So you can tell that you grew up around some black guys. I mean, let's call it what it is. You got a little flavor to you. And unfortunately, man. And again, I agree with both of you. What both of you are saying as far as no agenda or no, we're not going to judge. But see, for those of us like me, it's hard. It's hard because we do have an agenda. And the agenda is stop killing us. Treat me like you would treat your cat or your dog at home at the minimum. Yeah. And that's not every, person of non-color. Let's be clear of that. Obviously, like I said, hey man, I got great friends of all color, gender, whatever. But there's when we talked about fear, I'd rather call it not fear, but more so dislike or hate. People hate. So there's a segment of the population that hate what's going on today. And what's going on today, people are tired in my community. And when I say my community, I'm talking about black folks, let's be clear. They're tired. They're tired of having the same discussion. Mind you, I'm 52, but my mother was having this discussion. Yeah. You feel me? My mother was born in the 30s. And, people talk about, well, things are so far removed, but hell, she couldn't drink at the same water fountain other people could. We're talking about my mother. Yeah. So in the bigger scheme of things, you feel me? In the bigger scheme of things, yeah, we've come a long way. People bring up Barack Obama, the first black president, or things like that. But we've got so much longer to go. And I think part of it, gentlemen, is recognizing that black people just want to be recognized as people.
Well, heard.
You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's really what it's all. Have humanity. Have humanity. We are, I don't know if the other gentleman, I'm sorry, has kids or not, but Vince, you have kids. Sure. We at the end of the day, if you get a knife and you slice yourself open, and I slice myself open, we both gonna bleed the same color. Yeah. At the end of the day. And if people are believers of the Bible or Christians, then they know at the end of the day, we all started in the same place. Yeah. That's if people really believe. A lot of times people, like you said, they'll use things for their argument. The Ku Klux Klan used Christianity. You know what I mean? So Christianity was used to tell the slaves, hey, obey your master. So at the end of it all, in 2020, we just want to be recognized as humans, man. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And like you said, a lot of your friends when you were younger were crooks or what have you. And a lot of guys I knew,
included.
hey, a lot of guys I knew used to run the streets and do their thing. But at the same time, there's a lot of us that didn't. And I think for black folks, unfortunately, we get looped in together. It's just like with police now. You know, that's their argument. Man, we're everybody's not bad. Some of us, you know, we're trying to do this. We're trying to do this. We're trying to do that. And that's the same thing we're saying. Hey, we're not all thugs, pimps, and pushers, no matter what you might see in the music videos.
No, and that's the thing is, what does pop culture promote? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Pop culture promotes and we all, for me, like, so I remember when I grew up in Detroit till I was about 9. Then I had about a year and a half in Roseville, then Hazel Park. Roseville was pretty diverse. Hazel Park was all white. And that's when I thought I was discriminated against for the color of my skin when I was in Detroit. And maybe I was, because I was an easy target, but I had a lot of black friends, good black friends that would stick up for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't really hate driven, because we would drive, you know, I would drop the N-bomb as quick as they call me a honky, right?
Gotcha.
But we might as well have been saying your mom, right? We didn't know what we were saying. We just knew it pissed each other off. So,
exactly.
You know, and then I moved to Hazel Park. And not everybody in Hazel Park's racist, and I'm not going to say that for even a second. But there were some real racist people there, like some people that where it was ingrained, and they were kids, so they didn't know exactly that they were doing it. At a certain point, you have to come to a moment of realization to where I knew that everything, when I would hear the way it was being delivered, it bothered me. It wasn't how we talked in Detroit to each other. There was some hate behind it, and it bothered me. My responsibility in all of this is that in those times where I was bothered, I didn't say anything, right? Like I didn't. So that's a hard thing for a person to do, is say, look, I have some responsibility and all. If you don't like Trump, where's your responsibility in this? Because you probably led to that somewhere. Like, and if we can dig back into ourselves and evaluate ourselves, we can always figure out where maybe we didn't stand up for the things we believed in, and if we can take it on ourselves, we're not so busy pointing outside. Because when you're pointing outside, you can't control none of that. I can't control the way anybody thinks, you know? So, but when Obama, so I moved from culture shock. So I go from there to Northern Michigan. From Northern Michigan, I'm out at in LA, an actor, right? I'm in Hollywood. It's about as diverse as you get. I've never seen a gay person in my life. They were like, I knew they existed, didn't have, but they were like unicorns, right? Mythical creatures that I just. But then I get out there, and I remember calling my mom, going, and I had a cell phone, a flip phone. It's like, Mom, no, it's real. You know what I mean? Like it was such a culture shock. So I became one of those white people that were dismissive of some of the racist stories I would hear on the news. It wasn't so much that I didn't believe, I couldn't wrap my brain around it. You know what I mean? It didn't make sense to me because I wasn't, because my surroundings weren't. It just didn't make sense, and I don't think I wanted to deal with it because that meant more self-reflection, and I was real self-centered when I first got out to Hollywood. I hadn't learned what compassion was yet, and I wasn't driven by that. So I denied, and then Obama got elected. And then I remember the first day, I'm like, well, it's definitely gone now, no racism. And that's when I saw the underbelly, right? That's when I saw the deep South racist white suits coming. I'm like, holy shit, it exists. Like, and that's when I couldn't deny it anymore. But that's me. That's my story. Like, anybody who hasn't experienced the life instances that led to that realization, as much as I don't like what they're saying, I can't fault them for it. But I had to use it, and I don't want to take up too much time. But this is the example that I use. So people want to start throwing dumbass statistics out there. Look, I can create a statistic to sell any movie I want. I've done it, and it's been wrong, right? I can pull shit from anywhere. I can deny this story. I can grab this story. This one works. This is what I'll sell. And they're all skewed. Almost all of those studies are skewed depending on who commissions them. So they're all fucking bullshit, and they're all being used to support an agenda.
Correct.
But people will say, well, the majority of cops are good. And, okay, well, that's true. I would say that's probably true, or we'd hear a lot more about it.
Right.
And the majority of white people aren't racist. Probably true these days. But, you know, there are some ingrained racial tendencies, and we'll talk about that later. But and that's not everybody. But
Right.
so I use this example with this woman who's got biracial people in her family, and she seems to be, pulling towards, the other side, kind of not Candace Owens like, but maybe, you know what I mean? She's bad, but so I said, look, I get what you're saying. Now, imagine your child gets molested. So if your child gets molested by a teacher, most teachers are good. Most kids won't get molested. So do you say, I don't want to disrupt all the work these good teachers have done? They don't get paid much. I don't want to disrupt that, so I'm just not going to say shit. The fuck you won't. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Your kid gets molested, you're on their ass. They'll be lucky you don't go there and kill them, but you're definitely calling the police. And if you find out, like in the Catholic Church, if you find out there's a group of them that are doing this to children, that's their ass. And guess who? You're going to the press. And there's going to be those devout Catholics or people in the teachers union that have an experience and say, you're a liar because I've never experienced it. What the fuck would that feel like? And I get silence after that. It's crickets. Nobody has anything to say after that, but that's the mentality. It's like, yes, how can you not say that there's systemic racism when blacks were brought here as property? And it's only 50, 60, not even 60 years ago. It's about 62 years. And when Martin Luther King was assassinated, right? 68.
Exactly. Yep.
So, dude, I mean, that's a person. That's a person ago. Yeah. And I still can't overcome fully the trauma that I experienced as a child. And I was never property. So what kind of hopelessness do you think that breeds from generation to generation? Like you said, your mom couldn't drink from the same fucking water. Like
my mother, not my grandmother, my mother. Right.
Your mother.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like to not even be able to think about that for a second. Like you said, so this is what it's like right now. I had PTSD, right? And I dealt with that for years.
Yeah.
It would lead to depression. It would lead to different things. But the worst thing you can say to a person who's clinically depressed is, well, just get over it. Because you don't understand. It's the same shit. You're saying to a race of people that were considered property at one point.
Correct.
And there were systemic things put into place to keep black people indentured, right? To keep labor going. To say to them, just get over it? What the fuck is that? But people do it. You know what I mean? They do it when they don't understand it. How can you, besides having open dialogue without the anger, and like you said, you're walking on eggshells. We got to stop that. Like, we got to find a way to not, and that's why I feel good that people are engaging me, because 5 years ago, most wouldn't have. And there's some people who aren't that friendly with me that don't want to get into a war of words with me because they probably think I'm going to attack them. I'm not. I'm going to listen. Even though Sunday I had to shut it down. I'm like, I can't even be on this motherfucker.
Well, this what's going on is because, like I said, you have humanity, and you see what's going on. Your eyes are open, and unfortunately, other people that you're friends with, whether it's Facebook, I mean, now that's what we are privy to, or even just real life, at your job, your business, whatever. People are upset, and it's the weirdest thing. I mean, I seen something on video where there was an old white man. There was kids. These is white kids now. They had Black Lives Matter on the fence, and he just started taking down the signs. He said, because he paid taxes. The lady said, Black Lives Matter. He said, not to me. So it's when people get into that debate with me, well, man, just get over it. Just get over it. This is what people got to understand, and I'm going to steal this from someone else. Every time I write my last name or my name, well, my last name, that's a constant reminder. Denham is not an African name. When I look in the mirror, Vince, every day I'm reminded.
Yeah.
Every day I'm reminded. The African Americans are the only people in this country that doesn't have. It's like we don't have we were robbed of our identity. Think about that. Everyone else has that. Africans have that. We're not even respected, believe it or not, by a lot of Africans because they call us nuts. So we are the only group of people that's been really robbed of, certain things, man, and it's very hurtful. And so for people to tell me, say, hey, man, get over it. No, I can't just get over it. Now, at the same time, have we made strides? Of course we have. We've made tremendous strides. Thanks to people that's fought for those, like you said, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey and whoever else, Rosa Parks. But when you still have what's going on today, when you still have people getting racially profiled, when I put that stat on your page about Ike McKinnon, who's the former Detroit police chief, getting racially profiled in an unmarked car by one of his officers, a white officer.
Yeah, I hadn't read that till you sent it.
So, and I think a lot of times when people, when as a black person, we bring these things up, they're just like, I had one guy I went to high school with, man, we just had to just stop. I had to just stop dealing with him because he's like, man, he's like, this stuff doesn't go on. I said, dude, you see the same shit I see every day. Are you kidding me? So again, let me just jump to this piece. But you know what the difference is now? The difference is we've got young white folks in on the fight now. That's the difference.
Yeah.
It's impossible. You
got everyone.
Well, and it shows the progress. What's the dream that Martin Luther King talked about? He didn't talk about him rioting in the street, but even though he did say that's the language of the unheard. So listen. So let's just listen now. Let's quit pointing fingers and throwing dumbass statistics out there and say, okay, well, I mean, when a guy like Kaepernick steps out, and agree or disagree, but how many people have been in his position before him that just took the money? You know what I mean? Like, he was starting for the four. I mean, he went to a Super Bowl, and he that means something. You know what I mean? Like Chris Rock had and he was joking, right? Because he's Chris Rock, but he said if you ask a poor white person if they would want to be Chris Rock and have all this money, or they would want to be Mike, you're choosing Mike. And you really, to think about that, you're like, man, that might be true.
Is that crazy?
I mean, I'll be Chris Rock. I'll take it, but
yeah.
I memean, it's insane though. Like his comedy and Dave Chappelle too. You see that Dave Chappelle?
Oh, I seen it about Candace. Yeah, I seen that. Yeah. And here's the funny thing. Who's in Dave Chappelle's audience? Mostly. What's the majority?
Predominantly white. Yeah.
Predominantly white.
Yeah.
You go to a Beyonce concert. Who's in the crowd?
It's predominantly white. Yeah.
So again, like I said, people, and I guess the common saying now is they love our culture, but they hate us. How can those two exist? How can you be a racist and root for the Dak Prescott for the Cowboys or LeBron James? Or how can you listen to any Beyonce or Jay-Z? How is that?
Yeah, I think
I don't understand.
I think that a lot of white people don't see black celebrities as black. It goes back to, you remember that movie, like Do the Right Thing, where they're in the pizzeria, Mookie's like, well, your favorite artist is Prince, and he's like, no, it's Boss, and like, because he started pointing it all out, like, hey, your favorite basketball player is Magic. Oh, no, Bird, like, it's the same shit. It's the same shit. And a lot of this, I think, falls on the parents. Like, my father,
that's what I said,
was born and raised in Detroit. I grew up in the city, knowing the city, learning about the city, knowing the culture, and so. My dad was a historian and a history teacher, and broke down like the whole how the system kind of just works, and how there's just how African Americans ended up in cities and the Industrial Revolution and the way that it looks like from afar.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was always really a big. We're all equal. Right. We all have the same right to be on the planet as anyone else. There is no more. There isn't a hierarchy of who is more deserving to be on the planet than another person.
Exactly. Exactly.
We had Glenn McIntosh on. I don't know if you saw last episode, but Glenn is he's a vice president and chief. I can't remember the title exactly, but chief of diversity.
Sure.
And,
OU.
At OU, he's also the head minister at our, where we go, Renaissance Unity.
Sure.
And it was interesting to hear his perspective, which I know anyway because I sit in these groups and I listen to people and we all share our experiences openly and honestly without threat of being attacked for our opinions. The only way we work through differing opinions is we allow them. But you got to listen. If somebody says I'm hurting, why is it that it's so easy to believe a conspiracy theory over the fact that they might actually be hurting? I know when my kids tell me my stomach hurts, a lot of times I'm going to jump to, well, what do you want to get out of? I have to talk myself out of that. First, listen. Sometimes they are bullshitting. You know what I mean? But more times than not, they're not bullshitting. But Glenn said when the Constitution was written, and he made a valid point. He said black people weren't included in that. All men are created equal.
We were deemed property. We wasn't looked at as humans. Correct.
So when you talk about the system, how can you? How can you not? But I know because I didn't think deeply enough back when I was younger. I was too self-involved, and that's the problem. Is everyone's so self-involved, and that's what a system like this will do. Because what people don't understand is, the plight of the black man, and it goes on to because Mexican and Latinos are racially profiled,
exactly.
And Muslims or everybody who's not white in America gets racially profiled.
Exactly.
If you're a poor white person in the suburbs, you get racial, and you dress like a thug, and you know what I mean, and you speak, because that's how it was when I first came across the 8 Mile, and then I learned. I said, okay, well, if I talk white and I don't get tattoos, and I present myself in a different, then I can commit crimes. You know what I mean? And I got away with shit that my friends couldn't in Detroit. But
I want to interject to something you just said. You said something dressed like a thug.
Yeah.
And the perception is, and I was just telling my daughter the other day, what does Mark Zuckerberg wear every time you see him?
A hoodie. Yeah, but I'm coming from.
I get it. But what I'm saying is, Trayvon Martin was wearing a hoodie.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of my police friends, when they're off duty, you would not know they were cops. Yeah. They're listening to the same shit.
Well, some of the billionaires in the film industry. They dress.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. And so it's just this perception that, like you said, like thugs. So when you think of thugs, I had to cut into somebody the other day. And in Atlanta, she was in Atlanta and on Facebook, and she talked about the last killing. And no, I'm lying. There was 5 black young guys, and they got stopped for just being together, just standing there. And I don't know if you guys seen this recently.
No.
But so there are people screaming in the background, "Leave them alone! Leave them alone! Leave them alone! Leave them alone!" Whatever. So in the comments, this white lady says, those are what our criminals, our thugs look like in Atlanta now. So somebody shot back. They said, well, what, you mean because they got the skin tone of black folks. Then I chimed in and I screenshotted a picture of the 2 gentlemen that killed Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. And I said, no, these are thugs. And see, it's like thugs it's like if you look up thugs in most people's dictionary, you will see my face. Or, like I got on a polo shirt right now. Well, guess what? I wear hoodies. I wear baseball caps.
Right.
I wear, some different boots. You know what I mean? And again, man, it's got to come down to, first of all, people got to open their minds, and they got to use common sense at the end of the day. And I always go back to common sense.
And that's a tough order.
But it's so elementary. I mean, really, it's just treat me the way you want to be treated. It's that simple. Treat my child, treat my child like you want your child to be treated. It's so, and see, in the Black community, we're forgiving people. And that's being 100 with you guys. We are a forgiving people. And, you know, you look at somebody like a Candace Owens, for example, and she would be deemed what you call a traitor. You know, most people look at her like a Uncle Tom, a coon. Yeah, you guys heard all the terminology. And she doesn't realize she's being used. She's being used, you know, she's being used by, you know, that side of the table, so to speak. And, I mean, the things that she says, man, is so hurtful.
Toxic. She's toxic.
It's so obnoxious that it's just, I have to catch myself. I'm like, damn, I just need to get in my car and find her. That's how upset I get. But here's the thing about Black folks. Let Candace Owens get attacked by the same, by some white folks right now. The Black community, and I'm not saying everybody, they would still embrace her.
Yeah. Because it's
human. And that's just being, and I'm just, there was in a protest, there was a picture of a Black man had a white guy in the air because basically he saved the guy's life because I guess people were about to jump on him. And this guy was out here saying racial epithets against Black folks. But this guy lifted this guy in the air to carry him off. You know what I mean? And I know you laughed one day when I put a stat on and I said I'm more like Malcolm X and I'm closer to Martin Luther King.
I didn't laugh. I just responded.
Yeah. But what it was, what I meant by that is, I'm to the point, Vince, now where, you know, I can't make excuses for people anymore. I can't, because we've all been privy to so many different things. Unless you're just walking around like the monkeys, see no evil, do no evil, and you live in a fucking cave at this point. And you're choosing to turn a blind eye, in my opinion. You're choosing. That's a choice you've made to say, you know what? These people, I don't like them. I don't care for them. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what video I see, whatever. I don't want. And you know what, Vince? At the end of the day, I can respect somebody more for that. I have more respect for the person that says, you know what, Derek? I just don't like you for what you represent and the color of your skin.
Or I just don't care.
Or I don't care. I don't care about what's going on in your people or people getting murdered or somebody's being on somebody's neck for 8 minutes. I would rather for them to say that to me than to pretend that, you know, oh man, I'm with you, or, you know, we understand.
That's just how it snaps in your face.
Hey man, that's just how I'm cut. Let's keep it real. Now that's going back to the streets now. Let's keep it real. But
I'm glad you brought this up, that post, because I said to you, I said, you know, because I'm on some Martin Luther King shit. Like, he's a hero to me. He was a Christ-like figure to me.
No doubt.
With Sean. Like, that's, as a kid, so I grew up in the Black school, right, as Detroit, and I remember hearing about slavery. Never cussed in my life because I had the fear of death from my dad. But when I heard about slavery, what the fuck slipped out of my mouth? And my friend John Hopkins was sitting next to me. He started cracking up. The teacher didn't call me on it. And but I remember how that affected me. And then immediately after, we went into the lessons of Martin Luther King. Not that day, but and I didn't really understand the parables in the Bible the way they were spoke, but I understood that demonstration of love. Like, it hit me on a visceral level. So what I know from where we come from in spirituality and from all the abuse that I've endured, what I know is anger plus anger equals anger. Even take that out of the spiritual context and put it into energy terms. There's a certain level of energy and frequency. You add that to that same level, you're going to get more of it. There's no getting around it.
No doubt.
It's easier said than done. But what I said to you, I said, well, I used to be like you. Real. Because you could be militant with love, like Martin Luther King was. I'm going to stand in front of your bullets. Fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, that's beastie to me.
Right.
But an eye for an eye, you know, and the way I've always thought of it, well, we only got 2 of them. So eventually we're all fighting blind, you know, and it takes, he was Christ-like. Like you put him up there with Jesus Christ, and how many people can actually live a life like that, where you can walk and take those lumps, and like that's a, you know, only two in the studies that they've done on that level of consciousness, 2% of the human population has achieved that, and most of them die, young death, right? You know what I mean? I would like to die like that. Like I would like to die with that kind of honor and integrity. But so you bring this up, and I want to speak to my experience as somebody who's dealt with PTSD.
Sure.
I became a real deep study on the function of the brain, how it works. And it wasn't until I read a book that he recommended to me. It's called The Body Keeps the Score, to where I really understood how my brain shuts down and how I don't have access to certain parts of it if I don't maintain awareness. And that sent me on this journey of mindfulness, right, to where I have to do these 5 daily practices every day, or else I'm at risk of slipping up and becoming angry or whatever. But there's a section of your brain, it's called the Brodmann section. It's over here. Mm-hmm. So when I get triggered, right, and this can be anybody getting triggered. My level of PTSD was severe. So I would get triggered with something, a smell or whatever. It was emotional. It wasn't from military, so it was emotional. I would get triggered. This part of the brain shuts down immediately. They only know this from like 8 years ago when fMRIs came into play. So this part of the brain shuts down. This is the same part of the brain that shuts down when you have a stroke. Linear speech and all those things. So you literally get stupider, right? This part of the brain shuts down. And then there's a part over here called the Broca section. The Broca section fires up, which is fucking weird because all that's responsible for is taking in immediate imagery and then pushing that up through the amygdala for processing into the neocortex, which is what makes us human. Now,
man, I'm going to put MD behind your name in a minute, man. MD behind your name.
I'm just trying to lay it out there because maybe somebody can use this, but you take in this shit and you're living this experience, right? And I would say every black person in America has PTSD. Right, and I would say the majority of people at varying levels have it. It depends on your connection to your caregivers when you're a child, how that develops, right? So you take in this information and you go into a state of fight or flight because what happens? It gets pushed up to your amygdala. The amygdala can't process it. Me personally, 4% of my hippocampus, the neurons don't fire properly. They do now; they're better, but it just can't happen. So what happens is you got the reptilian brain, right? And the reptilian brain is responsible for survival mechanisms. Okay. We don't live in an environment where we have to survive, right? It's just not like that for humans anymore. Maybe back, when I grew up down in Detroit, I needed some of that. And it helped me to get through hard times. When I moved out the house, I didn't need that shit anymore. But I didn't know how to function because I would always revert to fight or flight. I had no say in that. Like at a certain point, this right here, it's done. Doesn't get past the amygdala, never makes it into the neocortex. I can't process information logically. I had to learn through cognitive processing therapy how to ask myself a question when the feeling would arise. But I had to identify where that feeling came from. So through therapy, I would say, okay, well, this happened when I was a child. What did that make you feel? It made me feel neglected, made me feel abandoned was a big thing for me. And whenever I would get triggered in that way, boom, fight or flight. I don't have access. I can't make a decision because it's not accessible to me. And I'm living here in fight or flight. So I'm fighting for my life. Everything was survival for me. Okay. 95% of the time there was nothing threatening my life. You know what I mean? But my ideas, my belief systems, things I wasn't responsible for creating, it was there. You know what I mean? Well, it's here, back here. And that's what I was defending. And I had to go through, most people won't go through the therapy I went through. You know what I mean? And most people won't be jostled to the point where you even have to realize this about yourself, because we're in a fear-based system where people are forced to go to work, pay the bills. If you keep people in fear, I don't think what most white people realize, like all from Hazel Park, we're poor. You don't think we're oppressed? Like they got the right now they can look at skin color, they can point a finger. That's easier. But as soon as we take that away, watch what happens next. If we stand behind our black brothers and sisters and we make this go away to the best of our ability, well, it's classism next, because they don't give a fuck about any of us. You know what I mean? None of us. Like if you stay poor so we can continue to profit, fuck you all. Right now we got the easy card, we got the race card. You guys take that away from us, we're coming after you next. It's time to unify. But I only say all of that about the function of the brain, so maybe you can understand. And it's not to say forgive, right? But when I learned that, I stopped trying to change people, and I stopped getting frustrated because I could go back to me and I could say, and I had to be honest with myself and say that I fucked up. I fucked up back then. I didn't know better, and I have to be okay with that. I have to quit because I would judge myself. You know what I mean? I'd be like, you were a piece of shit. You don't say that about you. You know what I mean? If you were doing things before you knew better, and then you get to a place where you finally know better, you gotta let it go. That's like like you said, black people are forgiving. Slavery. You know what I mean? Like, still willing to forgive white people if they'll just say, yeah, I admit we fucked up. I admit we fucked up, and I admit the system is fucked up, and I'm with you, and we don't want it fucking up anymore. You know what I mean? That, to me, that's Christ-like.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How do we, the racism goes well beyond just law enforcement.
No doubt.
It goes, it runs all the way up the tree.
No doubt.
The further up the tree you go, it's harder to weed out racism as your wealth goes up. You start talking billionaires, they protect that shit. They protect their class, they protect their race, and it's all about, protecting mine. How do you go after that amount of racism? How do you get that far up the tree?
Man, that's the $1 million question. $1 million question. I think where it could start is that if you're talking about the white elite, the black elite have to call them out too. So say Oprah or Jay-Z or see, a lot of times what happens exactly. A lot of times what happens in the black community, like right now, you don't hear from these people at this point. You don't hear from the Oprahs or Jay-Z or what have you. Yeah, he came in when Colin was talking about kneeling, which we know that wasn't about the flag, but it was about police brutality. So I think the black elite, since they are privy to those particular people and have those conversations, there's power in dollars, like you said, economics. And that's something that the black community is starting to understand more. There's power in hitting people in their pockets. So look at what's going on with the NBA right now. Kyrie Irving saying, hey, maybe we need to start our own league. We all know on this podcast and anybody else is watching that there would be no NBA or NFL without black folks.
You're right.
It wouldn't be as exciting.
Right. Let's change that. Right. It wouldn't be the same. So, and there's a segment of people saying, Kyrie Irving, man, what are you talking about? But we're learning as black folks now, yeah, we're protesting. We're doing this. We're screaming from the mountaintops again.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, to me, what makes the difference is hitting people in their pockets, man. Yeah, and that's where people in the power positions, whether this, I hate to keep using the same names over and over, but the Tylers, the Oprahs, the Jay-Z's, the Beyoncés, the Barack Obamas now, these people have to realize they have to leverage that power and say, hey, wait a minute. And I guess for Barack had more death threats than all presidents combined.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it.
So, and so Barack would probably say, well, damn, Derek, I hear you, man, but hell, they didn't even respect me. They elected me and don't respect me. So, but again, I just really think it goes back. I don't think we'll ever change the mindset of certain folks, fellas. I think it's our kids and their kids that's going to make the difference. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I think people that's, over 30 or 40 or 50, 60, I don't think we may not never change. If they are what they are at this point, in my opinion. Can some change? Yes. But I think we've got to, and I'm talking about black folks now, I think we've got to try to control our own narratives, try to empower more of us, so to speak. But here's the sad part, guys. on Trump was talking about, I guess on the 20th, doing a speech in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Now think about this. Again, there's a segment of the population that call black folks lazy. We don't want to work. We don't want to carry our own. We don't want to do it. But what happened to the Black Wall Street? When these black folks were doing their thing and self-empowered and businesses, they were pissed off and they bombed it.
Yep.
They bombed it. So, okay, so now I'm just putting you in the mindset of a black person now.
Yeah.
Now, goddamn, I go get my own. You mad? You destroy it?
Yeah.
I go ask for help. You're mad. I go, how do I win? So again, I think we got to get past the point of thinking that we can change certain people's mindsets. I think, but at the end of the day, we have the power now amongst ourselves to uplift ourselves, so to speak, economically, because at the end of the day, white, black, or indifferent, that's what people listen to is dollars.
Well, here's something, and what people listen to with George Floyd, and I know people are, well, he's a criminal. None of that matters. And was he a martyr? No, he didn't die for something he believed in, but he had died as a result of something that's being fought for. And he didn't know
he was going to be a martyr that day. He didn't whatever he was doing that day, he did not step out and say, you know what, I'm gonna go out and get killed today and be a martyr. This was something that he didn't ask for. You know what I mean? So no matter what it is. And here's the narrative that's always said about black folks. And you guys, and I know you pay attention to this. Any of these black folks that's gotten killed, what happens next? They try to find something negative.
Yeah. What did he do?
Well, you know, he sold. He was selling illegal cigarettes.
Yeah.
He did this 2 years ago.
He wasn't committing a crime.
Or he was drunk in his car.
Shouldn't have been speeding.
Taillight.
Get that fixed.
That's what one of your people said, and I cut into him on your Facebook. I forgot his name, but I guess he has a black son. And well, if you're not doing nothing, nothing's going to happen to you. Are you kidding me?
I remember that conversation.
Orlando Castile in I think Minnesota. He got killed. The officer stopped him, and his girl and his kid was in the back seat. She's broadcasting on Facebook Live. Yeah. He tells the guy, "Hey, I'm carrying. I have a weapon. I have a weapon. So I'm gonna reach for my license." They killed him.
Yeah. That's the go-to example, because
So as black folks, it's hard because we're and I hate to, but we're tired. We're tired of having to explain. We're tired of having to, you know what? Well, they don't get it. They don't get it. You just, at some point, you get tired. And see, coming from this side of the table, you know, you're always going to have people saying, well, man, you know, like you said, Vince, you heard people say, get over it. But when these things, it'd be one thing if this shit stopped. If it stopped,
to get over it.
Give me a chance to get over it. But before I can get over the brother in New York getting killed for selling cigarettes, I've got 4 more situations. And guess what? These are the ones we just see on video. So it's easy to tell somebody, hey, man, but these things are happening, and they're going to continue to happen. And I think, and just to change it up a little bit, I think how you help quell that as it deals with police brutality is do a complete reform, rehaul, and hold their asses accountable just if it was you, me, or anyone else that committed a crime. If I go murder someone and I'm proven guilty, hey, throw the book at me. If someone kills someone else and it's a cop, throw the book at them. It shouldn't have to go through all this politics and, well, let's dissect the video. let's slow down the Rodney King video frame by frame by frame. It's too much, man. And that's why I say it goes back to common sense. It goes back to common sense. And like you, Vince, you talked about listening and using your cognitive skills and different things. But again, when you're the one that's going through it, you know, that's why when you talked about people are afraid, that's when I try to give you the contrast of what really afraid is what it is. You know what I mean? My afraid is different than, you know, yeah.
I think we're at 6:59. But you're afraid. That's the thing, is we got different levels of afraid.
Exactly.
And when we can relate to people and say, well, I'm not you, you're not me, and then the dialogue can actually open up. But in closing, I mean, we're getting the boot. This was a great conversation.
Yeah.
I
Thanks for
appreciate
coming
you
on the
guys.
show.
I appreciate you guys letting me rant and rave, and sometimes you need that release. You need that release.
We'll do it, and we'll do it again, though. I mean, we got a good audience here, and not everybody agrees, and that's great. You know what I mean? But it seems like people that come here are open to conversation, and that's how we fix it.
If we can change one person, we're successful.
It's worth it, yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. It was good to see you again.
No doubt. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we'll have to link up again. All right, everybody, we'll try to get to all your comments. Message us, keep the ideas coming. Let's keep it flowing. That's all we can do.
No doubt.
All right,
Much love, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right. Peace. Yep.